Yo, what's going on everybody? Sully here, and today I wanted to talk about the classes in Sword Art Online Fractured Daydream and rank the characters from best to worst in each respective class. Fractured Daydream has a pretty large roster of characters who all offer their own unique experience. I almost feel bad using the word worst, because there really aren't that many characters that are actually bad. Most of them are fantastic in their own way. But I know most players just want to get to the point and play the best characters for each class. So if you're new to the game, and you want to know who you should pick, whether it be for daily missions or extreme boss raids or whatever else, I got you covered. Keep in mind this is not a tier list ranking the entire roster. That's another video I have planned for later down the line. I'm judging the characters based on their classes and how they compare to other characters within their same class. I'm also not judging the characters based on specific builds or legendary effects. I feel like once you take those things into account, it just complicates everything. Plus, not all players are going to have the same access to certain legendary effects. I also think it's just more fair to each individual character. This is just my personal opinion, but I do think the majority of players do share most of the same sentiments as me. If you disagree, that's totally fine. Let me know who your best and worst characters are for each class in the comments below, and if you want to see more content like this, be sure to like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow, and it will help keep you updated when new videos drop. With all that out of the way, let's get into it. Starting off with the fighters, we have Kirito. He's the first character you pick up in the game, and he's pretty easy to use. He's fast, he deals pretty decent damage, and he has some good combos. Plus, he's one of the handful of characters who has a charged heavy attack that you can use to get infinite air combos, which is really good. His advanced skills are solid, and his unique skill is pretty alright. He also has one of the better passive skills in the game that increases your damage after getting a 20-hit combo. If you play your cards right, you can get some pretty crazy damage with Kirito. He also has one of the best ultimates in the game. Next up is Asuna. She might not deal quite as much damage as some of the other fighters, but she's just so much fun to play as. Not only does she have some of the best combos in the game, but they're super easy to pull off. It also helps that she's arguably the fastest character in the fighter class. She easily has the smoothest and most fluid attacks in not just her own class, but arguably the whole roster. It just feels so good playing as her. Plus, she also has a charged heavy attack that she can use for infinite air combos. Though, from my own personal experience, hers is a bit harder to pull off than some of the other characters for some reason. Her advanced skills are pretty decent, especially her Shining Thrust. The range on that thing is actually pretty crazy. She also has a really good unique skill that buffs the entire party, and her passive skill increases her critical rate after getting her 20-hit combo, which is arguably better than Kirito's. The only annoying thing about her is that her ultimate can be pretty hard to land sometimes. Next up we have Liz. I'm gonna be real with you guys. I've barely played Liz. I got her to rank 30 to get her passive skill, and I haven't touched her since. She deals pretty decent damage, and she's the only character in the fighter class who can fly. Her advanced skills look really cool with some really nice animations, plus they actually have some pretty decent range. Her passive skill isn't much to write home about. If you get a perfect dodge or block, you release an electric wave that damages nearby enemies. It's not bad, it does also have a pretty decent chance of also stunning enemies, but I feel like it's very circumstantial. It's not really super useful against boss raids and more suited for co-op quests. And even then, I feel like it's more useful against specific enemies that are weak against electric attacks. Plus, perfect dodges and blocks are already pretty hard to pull off. So the only way you can really get the best out of this passive skill is by coupling it with Yui's or use legendary effects, which aren't allowed for the sake of this video. And then finally for the fighters we have Klein. Klein is absolutely insane. Not only does he arguably have some of the best advanced skills in the game, but his unique skill is pretty crazy. Being able to change his stats for different situations easily makes him the most versatile and diverse character in his class. His base stats are already pretty decent, but being able to increase them at any given point is pretty busted. He also arguably has one of the best passive skills in the game, which increases his damage whenever he gets hit. Coupling his passive with his fire stance on top of his already decent damage makes him an absolute beast. There's a reason why you see so many Klein players on the leaderboards. Keep in mind guys, I'm only judging the characters based on their base stats. I'm completely ignoring builds and legendary effects. If we start taking those into account, he can get into some pretty ridiculous stuff. Now in terms of who the best fighter is, I'm honestly pretty torn between Asuna and Klein. On one hand, Asuna is my favorite character and she's the most fun to play as, while on the other hand, Klein gets results. Ultimately, I'm gonna have to go with Asuna. Not only does she have better combos, but she's just a lot easier to play as, and she's really good for support. I only ever play as Klein when I'm playing competitively, which I rarely ever do. I mostly just play the game for fun. Below Klein is Kirito, who is pretty solid all around, but I feel like Asuna and Klein just have more to offer. And then on the bottom of the list for the fighter class we have Liz. Liz isn't bad by any means, I just feel like I get more value out of the other fighters. Next up we have the tanks, starting with Agio. I gotta be honest guys, Agio does not feel that great to play as. He's just so slow. I know he's a tank, so it's a given he's going to be slower than the other characters on the roster, but he just feels so clunky even compared to the other tanks. He does have pretty good defense, and he does deal a pretty decent amount of damage. Plus his unique skill is actually really good and offers some pretty useful super armor, but he doesn't really have a whole lot to offer in terms of combos. Next up we have Heathcliff, who's actually surprisingly versatile. Heathcliff is pretty much the complete opposite of Agio. When I first picked him up, I did not think I would like playing as him at all, but he turned out to actually be one of my best characters. He has a ton to offer in terms of combos, especially since he has a charged heavy attack like Kirito and Asuna. As a matter of fact, Heathcliff just might have the best air combos in the game. He's actually crazy in the air, which is surprising considering the fact that he's supposed to be a tank. Now because he is a tank, he does move slower than most of the other characters on the roster, but he honestly doesn't feel that slow. He actually feels faster than most of the other tanks, and his attacks feel much smoother and more fluid as well. His advanced heals are actually super powerful, not just because they deal crazy damage, but they also have defensive capabilities, which is pretty crazy. I just randomly discovered he could block attacks with his projectiles during a boss raid and it blew my mind. I also love how useful his shield is. Not only does it automatically block certain attacks for you, but you can also damage enemies just by running into them. His unique skill is also super good. At first I thought I just gave him and your party defensive buffs, but I found out it also reflects attacks back at enemies when blocking, which is pretty sick. He also has one of the better passive skills when compared to the other tanks. Heathcliff is absolutely crazy. Somebody please nerf this man. Next up we have Alice. Alice is easily one of the strongest characters in the game. Not only does she deal good damage, but she has some of the best advanced skills in the game. They hit hard and they have some pretty impressive range. She also has what is arguably the best unique skill in the game. Not only does it have a really cool animation, but her damage gets absolutely ridiculous. Her base damage increases by a pretty decent amount, and her advanced skills deal even more hits and have even more range and area of effect. It looks sick as hell and it feels super satisfying to pull off. Also, I had no idea about this before, but Alice actually has a secret infinite air combo. It's super hard to pull off, but it is doable. Her ultimate also deals pretty amazing damage, but it is pretty annoying to land. Her passive skill has a chance of taking 0 damage, which might sound good, but the chances are a lot lower than you might think, so it's actually kinda useless. And then finally for the tanks we have Straya. Now Straya is a DLC character, so if you didn't buy her, you unfortunately don't have access to her. I pre-ordered the premium edition for the game, so I got everything. Straya is kind of weird when it comes to the tanks. On one hand, she has pretty good offense, but on the other, her defense is lacking pretty badly, which is not good for a tank character. She has a charged heavy attack, so she has some pretty decent air combos that are surprisingly easy to pull off compared to most of the other characters. The best thing about her is easily her advanced skills. Not only do they deal good damage, but as far as I know, she's the only character in the game who can move around while charging her attacks. She also has a really good passive skill that allows her to deal even more damage with her advanced skills, which can all be charged twice. Plus, while she's standing in the circle for her Chaos Dominion, she can absorb HP according to the damage she deals. When it comes to the best tank, to me, Heathcliff is the obvious choice. I just gotta go with him. I know there are a lot of people out there who will disagree with me and say that Alice is the best, and that's totally fine. I completely understand why. Alice is amazing in her own right, but Heathcliff just has way more versatility and diversity in things that he can do, and for me personally, he's just way more fun to play as. Alice is a very close second though. Then below them we have Straya, who is fun, but is lacking pretty badly in terms of her defensive capabilities when compared to the other tanks. And then on the bottom of the list we have Agheel. In terms of practicality, I think he is above Straya just for the simple fact that he actually plays like a proper traditional tank, but he's just not fun to play as. Playing as him honestly feels like a chore. Up next we have the rogue, starting with Argo. Argo does some surprisingly high damage for a rogue, and she's the only character in the game that can double jump. She also has some pretty decent advanced skills with a really nice ultimate that looks cool as hell and deals good damage. I'm not really a huge fan of her unique skill though. It seems good on paper, but realistically it only ever seems useful in certain co-op quests. I don't see it being very helpful during boss raids. Same thing goes for her passive skill, which deals extra damage from behind. It's not bad, but I only ever see it being useful against bosses like the Kobold. It's absolutely worthless against Trummel. Next up we have Lyn. Lyn is one of the easiest characters to play as in this game. She gets pretty crazy high combos in a very short amount of time with very little effort. Some of her advanced skills can be pretty hard to land, so I mainly just stick to her regular rapid fire. Her dash is absolutely amazing for dodging attacks and speedrunning co-op quests. I had no idea you could hold down her dash to travel farther distances. The first time I ever did it, I literally went absolutely flying through the air. It really caught me off guard. She also has a really good unique skill that has some insane potential for crazy high combos. Next up we have Edgy. Edgy is amazing. He is easily one of the best characters in the entire game. He deals good damage, he's arguably the fastest character in the game. His combos are insane and stupid simple to pull off. He has great advanced skills that not only deal damage, but just look really awesome. He can double dash, which is super useful for dodging attacks as well as speedrunning co-op quests. And he has an amazing unique skill where he basically activates Ultra Instincts. He also has one of the best passive skills in the game, which increases his critical rate when fighting elites and bosses. It might not be as high as Asuna's, but considering the requirements that need to be met in order to activate it, I'd say it's probably better. With Asuna, you have to get a high enough combo, and once the combo ends, it resets. Whereas with Edgy, all you have to do is just be around a really strong enemy. Edgy is just an all-around super solid character. You literally cannot go wrong with it. And then finally for the rogues we have Yuki. Yuki already deals pretty good base damage, but her unique skill coupled with her passive skill make her pretty broken. Her unique skill makes her invincible for a short period of time while depleting her health, and her passive skill increases her damage dealt when her HP reaches 50% and lower. It is very risky, but if you know what you're doing, you can get some pretty crazy damage. She also has some really good advanced skills, and her mother's Rosario is one of the best ultimates in the game. She can also fly, which is a really nice added bonus. Now the player base seems to be pretty torn on who the best rogue is between Edgy and Yuki, and I completely understand both sides. Both characters are amazing in their own right and offer their own unique experience. While I prefer Yuki's character in the actual series, I gotta go with Edgy. Not only does he feel way better and way more fun to play as, but Yuki's playstyle is a sort of high risk, high reward, whereas Edgy is more low risk, high reward. Yuki is a very close second though. Then below them we have Lyn, and on the bottom we have Argo. Argo isn't bad, she is fun, but the other rogues just have way more to offer. Up next we have the Rangers. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I don't really like the Rangers in this game all that much. They aren't bad by any means, it's just their play styles didn't really click with me. Lynn is pretty simple to use because she has rapid fire plus a lock-on feature. I can't really say the same thing for the other characters who use guns. This class is kind of whatever for me personally, so I'm not gonna fight too hard on this one. Sinon has some pretty solid advanced skills, but her best one is by far her gravity bullet. That skill is actually amazing. I also really like the fact that you can actually switch her weapon to a gun that makes her play more like Lynn, which is super helpful when trying to target enemies. Her unique skill and her ultimate are pretty decent, and she has an alright passive skill. I feel like it's only really useful for characters like Sinon and Lynn who can hit weak points pretty easily. Fuka is really hard to play as and can be pretty annoying sometimes, but when she does hit, she deals crazy damage. She has some really good advanced skills, including a healing grenade, which is super useful for support. I also really like the fact that you can change the element of her weapon mid-fight to match the enemy you're fighting. I hate her ultimate though. I can never land it and it's really annoying. Her passive skill has potential to be really good, but I feel like it only ever really works when you're in a party with friends. It's not going to be very helpful when you're just playing with randoms. Death Gun deals pretty decent damage plus a unique skill that can get him way higher. And he has surprisingly good melee attacks compared to the other rangers. His ultimate is pretty hard to land, but if you do manage to land it, it deals crazy damage. There's a reason why you see so many Death Gun players stealing the last hit in boss raids. He also has one of the best passive skills in the game, which increases his critical rate by a pretty ridiculous amount. I do think it's kind of annoying how you can't switch his weapon like the other rangers though. Again guys, I don't care too much for the rangers, so I'm not going to fight too hard on this one. If you disagree, that's totally fine. Death Gun deals pretty insane damage, but I'm gonna have to go with Sinon on this one, just for the simple fact that her secondary weapon actually auto-locks enemies. Death Gun is a very close second though. Then we have Fuka on the bottom. She's not terrible. If anything, she is better suited for boss raids than the other rangers, but she's really hard to control. Up next we have the mages, starting with Quinella. Quinella is easily one of the most fun characters in the game. She's fast, she can fly, she has really good combos, and she has pretty solid advanced skills. Using her lightning attack while she laughs maniacally is just so satisfying. Plus she has a really good unique skill where she basically shoots out a Kamehameha that can be used to steal last hits during boss raids. A lot of people seem to really like her passive skill, which gives random buffs, but personally I'm not a fan. It's not horrible, it's just the fact that it's randomized, so you never know what you're gonna get. It might not even be anything useful. I also really hate her ultimate. It has potential to do some crazy damage, but every time I try to use it, the sword golem is always facing the wrong way and it doesn't do shit. Bandai Namco, please fix her ultimate. Next up is Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Is an all-around pretty solid character who is really good at crowd control and is actually pretty similar to Alice when it comes to his advanced skills and unique skill. His advanced skills all have a chance of freezing enemies, and his passive skill increases those chances by about 8%, which isn't too crazy by itself, but for Yu-Gi-Oh! That's pretty good. His unique skill increases his base damage as well as the range and area of effect of his advanced skills. He also has one of the best ultimates in the game. It does crazy damage and it guarantees freeze. Except against bosses, you can't freeze them. You can still do pretty crazy damage against them though. Finally for the mages we have Oberon. Oberon sucks. I'm not just saying that because I hate his character, he's actually terrible. Apparently there are a lot of people who like him in this game, and I don't know why. He has awful combos, his defense is pathetic, and his unique skill is useless. Now he does offer some unique advanced skills compared to the other mages, but they're nothing too crazy. His ultimate isn't terrible, but it's basically just a worse version of Yu-Gi-Oh's. He does actually have a pretty decent passive skill, but that's it. There is more I want to say about his moveset, but a lot of it pertains to how he compares to the rest of the roster. And that just isn't fair, and it goes against the nature of this video. Not that I would ever want to be fair to Oberon. Either way, I'll save it for my tier list video. When it comes to the mage class, Yuju is usually my go-to. I do like Quinella's combos better, and she can fly, which gives her an edge in terms of how fun she is, but Yuju's skills are just way too good to pass up on. Oberon is dead last. His advanced skills do offer a unique experience you won't get from the other mages, but both Quinella and Yuju offer more value in the things they can do, and they're just generally better and more fun to play as. And finally, we have the support class. The support class is a bit tricky. The player base seems very divided on who the best support character is, and it's not very hard to see why. All the support characters in this game are actually really good. Let's start off with Leafa. Leafa is probably the best fight character in the game. Her flight is actually crazy. She has some pretty decent combos and damage for a support character, and some surprisingly good advanced skills. She also has a nice ultimate. Not only can you move the targeted area, but it also sucks in nearby enemies, which is really good. Her unique skill is amazing, and she has one of the better passive skills in the game. Overall, Leafa is a solid support character. Up next we have Silica. When I first picked up the game, I had very low expectations for Silica. I didn't think I would like playing as her at all. She very quickly became one of my favorite characters in this game. She has amazing combos, great advanced skills, a solid ultimate, and a really nice unique skill. I actually really like how a lot of her moveset is centered around her and Pina working together as a team. It's pretty cute, and it actually looks really awesome. Her passive skill might sound good, but it doesn't really make that much of a significant difference unless it's coupled with other healing passives. Other than that, she's an all-around super solid character and a ton of fun to play as. Up next we have Yuna. Forewarning, I absolutely suck as Yuna, so you're gonna have to bear with me while I judge her. Her combos aren't anything too crazy and can be pretty hard to land sometimes, but she deals crazy damage. Her damage is actually insane, like she has no business being in the support class at all. She does not belong here. Her advanced skills can be tricky and pretty hard to land, but she does have one of the best ultimates in the game. Not only does it deal good damage, but you can move it around and even heal and revive nearby players within the circle. It's actually broken. She also has one of the best unique skills in the game. Not only does it give crazier buffs over time, but the gauge refills really fast, so you can just keep spamming it over and over again. Yuna is an awesome character, but there is a learning curve to playing as her. If you can overcome it, she can easily become one of the best characters in the game. And then finally we have Yui. Now Yui is my favorite support character, but only because I have a very specific build for her. And as I established at the beginning of the video, builds are not allowed. I am only judging these characters based on their base stats. Completely ignoring my build for Yui, I'm not gonna lie guys, she's pretty disappointing. She's one of my favorite characters from the series, and her gameplay trailer made her out to be awesome. So I had very high expectations for her. But when I first picked her up, I absolutely hated playing as her. Her combos aren't very good, and she doesn't deal much damage either. It is cool that she has charged ranged attacks, but they aren't super useful. Her advanced skills aren't terrible, but they're way better in her pixie form, and with certain effects. And as we established earlier, those are not allowed. I do like her unique skill, but I do find it annoying how you can't actually fly in her pixie form. Overall, Yui is pretty underwhelming without any builds or legendary effects, which doesn't feel good to say because she's one of my favorite characters in both this game and the show. This one is a bit tough. Out of all the classes in the game, this is the one that the player base seems to be the most divided on. Everybody says each individual character is the best, and I completely understand all sides. But for me personally, I'm gonna have to go with Silica. Again guys, this is judging the characters based on their base stats. If I were to take builds into account, I would put Yui at the top. But because that's not allowed, I'm gonna have to go with Silica instead. Out of all the support characters, her playstyle clicked with me the most. She's easily the most fun to play as. Then below her is Leafa. I know people are going to disagree and say Leafa is the best, and I completely understand why. I just have more fun playing as Silica. Leafa is a solid pick though. Then below her is Yuna. I can already hear the people screaming at me saying Yuna is the best character, and I don't know what I'm talking about. Now I am not saying Yuna is bad. Yuna is very good. I just never got over that learning curve. To me personally, she just isn't as fun compared to the other supports. Then at the bottom is unfortunately Yui. I wish I could put her at the top, but for the sake of the video, I just can't. Sorry Yui. So there you have it. That is every character ranked from best to worst based on their own respective classes. Now do keep in mind guys, this is just my own personal opinion based on my experience with the game. If you disagree, that's totally fine. Unless you like Oberon, in which case you're wrong. So what do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below who your best and worst characters are in each class. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to let me know by hitting the like button so I can keep making videos like this one. And subscribe to the channel so you stay updated when new videos drop. Hope you all have a blessed day, and I hope you have a very Merry Christmas, and I'll see you all next time. Stay safe and take care.